Hello and welcome back to Pensive Podcast. This latest episode has been split into two parts. The conversation with Patrick was so insightful that I really just wanted you all to listen to it in its entirety. So sit back, relax, and let's get on with the episode. Hello and welcome to Pensive Podcast. I'm Chloé and I'm the host of this podcast. And today I have a very special guest. We have Pat on the podcast. Yay. Hey. Is it your first time? No, you've been on camera before.
Yeah, I've been on camera before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not his
I'm
first
still
time.
nervous though.
It's not, yeah.
I don't know why I'm nervous because I know you pretty well as well.
I know. I think it's like the feeling of being like in a room.
Yeah.
With the cameras.
It's like a serious studio. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
That's how I operate. I'm professional.
Yeah.
But first, let me introduce the podcast. So I'm Chloé and I'm the founder of Pensive. I run workshops and have a course called the NPR Method, which is about creativity, productivity, mindfulness, and relaxation. There's a YouTube video about it on this channel, and you can check out more about it on the Pensive website. And today we have Pat. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Patrick. I've known Chloé for a long time.
Since I was 7?
Yeah. Introducing myself. So I guess that I am a bit of a wanderer.
Mm-hmm.
I love to travel. I am creative, I guess, in spirit, shall we say, and I'm like pursuing now more of a creative path in what I do of my day-to-day, or at least that's the aspiration. And what I do work-wise is sort of, it's fairly creative, but I've worn many different hats in my career. I've had loads of different jobs. Yeah, like my first job out of uni, I was working for a fashion house. It was really random. I mean, back then I was like kind of interested in fashion, but like, yeah, it wasn't something that I planned to do. I just ended up working there via a recruitment agency, and that was really cool. I've worked as a journalist. I've worked as a presenter, an events kind of like presenter as well, like a compere. I've done stuff like that. I've worked in tech and now I work in advertising. But I think throughout all of my different roles and jobs and whatever, there's always been like a kind of creative vein that's gone through it.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a kid, like I was very musical as well. Yeah. So yeah, you probably remember like
the viola.
Violin and viola. Like that was my life, I think, for a lot of my childhood. I still did like normal things. Like I still like
normal things.
I still like played football and like, you know, like
sports.
Sports guy stuff. I played a lot of music and I have a lot of fond memories of being a musician, creating music in orchestras, collaborating with other people, getting to travel as well. Mm-hmm. So I think from young, I've always gotten used to this idea of like traveling, like, but has that really introduced myself very well?
It has, because it really introduces like the reason I brought you on the podcast.
Oh, good. That's handy.
It's perfect because, like I said to you, I talk to people who identify like I am a insert title here, like I'm a creative person, like content creator, translator, YouTuber, etc.
Yeah.
But I think the way you just introduce yourself, like I'm a creative, because of the way I've lived my life.
Okay.
I think that's basically the reason, because I want to be able to show people that being a creative is not a job title. It's just an experience, and it's a lived experience. That's the perfect segue into like
nice. Okay.
Into
we didn't plan that.
No, we just went with it. Maybe let's start talking about what creativity is to you, because I think you kind of touched on it, and I think I put my kind of own spin on it. Like, Pat is a creator of his life, but I want to know like what it kind of means to you as someone who not only works, you know, in advertising, but also someone who identifies as a creative.
I think everybody has the capacity for creativity. I think everybody should tap into their creativity as well. I think creativity is vital. It's you know, it's life. It's a life force. I think the arts is how humanity expresses its lived experience, you know? So, and everybody has something to say. Even if you don't feel like you're particularly gifted, there are many different ways to express creativity. I remember so I also belong to a podcast as well. Over the Bridge podcast. You can check us out.
Yeah.
But we actually did an episode on creativity a while back. And I remember sort of talking about how people can really express creativity in ways that they perhaps don't realize is creative.
Mm-hmm.
I think the example I used on the podcast at the time was like being a parent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a parent, you've got kids and they're at a young age, you have to kind of find ways to keep your kids engaged.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy job parenting. And, you know, a good parent really has to kind of understand their kids and know what kind of makes them tick, what they're interested in.
Yeah.
And all of that to me is being creative,
Mm-hmm.
like finding a solution that, you know, isn't something that's prescribed. You have to kind of use your imagination.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of use that as an example of like being creative without it being like this kind of like it's super obvious that
Mm-hmm.
you know you're using creativity. But that for me is an element of creativity. But in everything that we do, I think it's really important to have an appreciation for creativity and for arts. And I think it helps us express ourselves. I think it helps us to understand things in a way that perhaps other ways of communication perhaps don't reach that far.
Yeah.
I'm really into film. I'm actually trying to get into filmmaking at the moment.
I didn't know this. Brand new
Oh,
information.
you didn't know? My friends ask me all the time, like, why do you watch film so much? Like,
Mhm.
why do you rewatch things? And I think film is an example of like such a powerful medium. For me, I watch film to learn,
Yeah.
not just from a filmmaking perspective, but also, again, learning about the human experience. Sometimes I watch like historical films and I feel like very often I'll watch like a random film about a random subject that's historical, but then that will kind of set me on a path to kind of learn more about that specific subject. Okay, yeah, films use creative license, artistic license, and they don't always, you know, it's not always completely factual. But I think very often it serves as a kind of gateway to learning more about something. I really appreciate how film, again, it kind of, very often a good film explores the human experience, how we respond to different things, how we respond to adversity, or how we respond to love, or how we respond to whatever. I feel like I'm rambling a bit, but I feel like there's some kind of
I understand because I think I watch a lot of film as well, and I read a lot of books, and I find that something I keep coming back to is I understand myself more when I read books, whether it's fiction or non-fiction.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like the themes that I tap into or what I need at the time. But there's something about finding yourself through other people's words that's very relevant.
Yeah.
And whether it's like, because in fiction, you know, if you're reading like a vampire fantasy novel, it doesn't matter. You can still find, I know it sounds weird, the humanity.
No, but
within
exactly. That's literally
within
it.
Within that character, with the genre or something, because the author or the auteur or whoever created the art always gives a piece of themselves to the work.
Yeah.
So you're not only experiencing the story and the narrative and the plot and whatever you've been taken through a thought process as well. Like, there's so many layers of what's gone into creating the work.
Yeah.
So I completely understand, and especially what you said about even if it's like a film that's historical. I think what's so funny is like we forget that these were people that ate and drank and went to the toilet, like you know, and they experienced things like love and loss and grief and joy and just because it's being presented in like maybe a stoic, formal way from the BBC, it doesn't make it any less visceral or romantic or something you can learn from.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think what you said about experiencing something or like via the words of somebody else, I can't remember the words exactly that you used, but yeah, I think that's really important to kind of, creativity is about connection. I think it helps us to understand that these crazy, weird thoughts and emotions that we have, we're not the only ones that feel that way, and we're not the only ones that experience that thing. And in many ways, that can transcend language as well, you know? Like music, for me, again, it's such a powerful medium. I just remember like playing music like as a kid in my adolescence, and you know, the best composers, they're able to like really communicate a sense of feeling or emotion without using words. And again, it's that thing of creating a connection between, you know, people from disparate geographies or even like time periods, you know, like I'm listening to music from like the 19th century. And like you said, people in those time periods, they experience the same kind of emotions, love, joy, anguish, grief. They experience those things as well. And we kind of do this thing where we kind of forget that those people are human as well, but like that's how creativity can really connect us.
Oh, that's really good. That's a great answer for what is creativity. Yeah, so I guess, my other question was, do you consider yourself a creative? And I guess you answered that in like the ways you just...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's funny because I think work-wise, I'm not there yet. Like I always look at creators, I'm like, I'm trying to be like you guys and I'm going to get there. But I think everybody, like I said, everybody has a propensity, has the capacity for creativity.
Mm-hmm.
So I just see myself as me. Like I just see myself as Patrick. And there's things that I love to do.
Mm-hmm.
There's things that I haven't tried yet that I want to try. But I think the one thing about me is that I will never restrict myself from trying something if I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people feel like because of their identity or sometimes their gender expression or their sexuality, whatever, they just feel like, I can't really do this thing. That to me is like no shade to anyone, but that to me is absurd.
Yeah.
Like if you want to try something, just do it, man. Like I remember I was saying to one of my friends, I really like horse riding.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do some horse riding while I'm on holiday. And they're like, black people don't really do that. And I was like, well, this black person does. So
literally what's stopping me? I can get on a horse.
yeah. Like it seems fun to me, so I'm going to do it. But yeah, I'm always kind of, I don't like to restrict myself. I don't like to put myself in a box. I always like to at least try things once before I say, this is for me or this isn't for me. So yeah.
I think that's a very creative outlook on life. And maybe, this is just my guess, maybe you don't consider yourself a creative because there's no, well, this is true for me. Like sometimes if there's no specific physical output, like I haven't created a thing that I can touch.
Yeah. But this is the thing. I believe there's kind of two definitions of like being a creative. Like there's being a creative by profession, by career, whatever.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm always trying to be like, because I think those guys are pretty cool. Like I think it's so empowering to be able to create something and then share it with people. So I'm working my way towards that. I'm not there yet, but I think the other side of that is everybody, like to be a creative to me is to be human. Like, so that's why I wouldn't really be like, hey guys, I'm a creative, because I think that's just part of the human experience. We all are creative people. It's just how much do we want to tap into that? Genuinely, I feel like creativity is such a lifesaver, like especially like the society that we live in, the values that this society has. Very often it reproduces notions of individualism and us sort of kind of just being kind of like a cog in a machine, and that wider machine being like, I don't know, capitalism and all the bad stuff. So I think, it's so important to hang on to creativity, because that is literally our connection to each other, to our humanity.
Yeah.
We're not robots. And I think it's really, really important to hang on to, human experience. Because like the first evidences of human life are like cave paintings. It's not something that they've built or like, like some sort of evidence of like commerce. It's literally art. Like that is how the first kind of human experiences were communicated through art. So I think it's really important we hold on to that.
Yeah, no, I agree completely, because I had, at this moment, I don't know what it was about David Lynch's passing that made everyone suddenly think.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I saw like 10 ton of think pieces about his legacy and creativity. And it made me think about legacy and what we leave behind. And I think right now the current state is like we are valuing so much like business and entrepreneurship and technology. And I don't think that in 10 years we're going to be at the altar of Elon Musk, like, and when he passes, it's not going to be that same legacy of grief that we've lost someone like Elon Musk. We're grieving David Lynch and what he brought in his creativity and his joy to the world. Like, it's just not the same.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a fan of Elon Musk. I'm not a fan of his politics. I'm not really a fan of him at all. But I think it is important to acknowledge when people that have brought something to the world, even though it doesn't necessarily, like, for example, like someone like Steve Jobs, when he passed, I remember there was an outpouring of grief. A lot of people like respected him, and he was a loss. Say what you will about, how much of his contribution, how much of what Apple was is his contribution or not. But I think someone like that, again, I think they do represent an element of creativity.
Yeah.
But I think what we're seeing now is that kind of imagination, that kind of creative spark, it's being lost in favor of, I think, companies that want to maximize on making profit and are kind of leaving the creative element to one side, or at least trying to substitute it with artificial intelligence, or just basically trying to maximize profit at the expense of creativity.
Yeah.
That I feel like is the worrying trend that we're on now. And even in what I do in advertising, I'm seeing that a lot. Like, our clients, brands, they want to maximize profit as much as they can. And, that's their business. That's what they're in business for, to make money.
Yeah.
But we have to be really careful about how our relationship with creativity. I don't think that we can kind of just have AI as some sort of surrogate for creativity.
No.
But I don't want to dwell too much on this whole thing of AI and whatever. But yeah, when we think about like what people contribute to the world, I don't think we're really, grieving people that are, have maximized shareholder value, or, these kind of things where it's just like, how much money can we exploit, or how much money can we make? No, we and even the people that, that we perhaps don't idolize or we don't appreciate that much, the people that do appreciate them, I think they appreciate them for their creativity, their vision.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know, maybe that's just me.
I think there's a massive difference between Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, though. One of them was an innovator.
Yeah.
And like a creative innovator that's literally revolutionized how we use technology.
Yeah.
And the other one is...
But I mean, even with Steve Jobs, because I use that example very like with a pinch of salt, because there are people that will say, Steve Jobs again was just a figurehead. He was somebody that was able to inspire the people that worked underneath him, whatever. Like, I don't really want to get into the nitty gritty of like individual people's legacy, but I think what people do tend to remember is how they inspire people, how they brought a vision.
Yeah.
And that to me comes under creativity, more than say like, let's see how much money we can make out of this and how much, But
no, I agree completely.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about your job and how that ties to like creativity, because I don't know, I still find it fun. You're like, I'm not one of those creative people, but maybe it's because creativity is kind of being shifted to kind of this blank bracket of entrepreneur. It's got like this thing tacked on the end that maybe you're not saying out loud. It's the entrepreneur part.
No, because do you know what? I'm very like, my creativity, at least what I'm working towards, while I do want to be able to make money from it, it would be nice. That is not the primary objective. So I don't really see, I think entrepreneurship is a form of creativity. Again, you have to use your imagination, you have to think outside of the box. But I don't necessarily think that to be a creative, you have to be an entrepreneur. Because I don't really see myself like, I'm very like, that's not.
No, I agree. I just think that's kind of like what's being seen now.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah, maybe there's an element of that.
Because you're seeing how these people are turning their talent into something else that can be consumed, maybe?
Yeah. It's kind of only natural, I suppose. Everybody has to eat.
Yeah.
Especially in this economy. But and maybe this is probably a bit of naivety on my part, but when it comes to how I imagine my creativity to be, like, making money would be like a nice secondary consequence of what I do. For me, the most important thing is at least just expressing myself as authentically as possible. And if people vibe with it, they vibe with it. If people want to pay money for it, they'll pay money for it. But I think at the very least, like the things that I would like to do, whether it's with my filmmaking or photography as well, or even like podcasting, my thing is just about communicating ideas and being as authentic to myself as possible in that process. Because everybody's unique, and I think everybody has a unique voice to share with the rest of the world. But you didn't ask me about. You asked me about my job specifically.
Yeah,
So
I want to know
Yeah.
how your personal values of communication, because they're all in line with creativity, but in terms of like an advertising job, where things have to be a bit skewed. I don't know, because my personal view of advertising is like not so great.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see why people are perhaps a bit apprehensive about the industry. What I do specifically in advertising, I quite like what I do. So I'm what's called a transcreation manager.
Words.
Yeah, I'll explain. Sounds really kooky, but transcreation is essentially creative translation. So let's say, I don't know, a brand like Nike or, I don't know, Adidas or like just a big brand. They have a campaign that they want to release in multiple different markets, right? And they might have like a cool slogan or something like that. A good example actually is McDonald's, even though I don't advocate McDonald's. Okay, don't eat McDonald's. They had I'm loving it, right? That whole thing, right? And I remember at one point when I used to go to McDonald's back in the day, they would have like the I'm loving it slogan, but in all the different languages. And it was different because I'm loving it. It can work in some languages, like literally. Yeah. But in other languages, they had to like kind of change it so it makes sense in that language. So essentially, creative translation is that. It's like finding a way to communicate the same idea but reaching people in their language. Because it's very difficult to translate word for word creative slogans, or even like in film as well, like a joke in a film in English probably won't work in French, for example, So so that's what I do in advertising.
Do you find that, because also forgot to mention, you speak Portuguese and Spanish?
Yeah, Spanish is a bit rusty, but...
Spanish is rusty.
Yeah. But
we all have like that one extra one. It's like, I can in an emergency.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. yeah.
Do you think, because you have an understanding of how language functions, you have a better understanding of like how culture works, just in general? Because I know that just because my languages are English, French and Japanese, which is super random. But like, I know that if I'm speaking French, I've entered this like headspace of, okay, this makes sense. Yeah. If I'm speaking Japanese, I'm like, this culture is like this. Yeah. So I think you just kind of already come with an understanding of best practice in culture as well.
I feel like speaking a second or a third language in my line of work is very, very helpful. Most of the people that I work with, like most of my colleagues, they speak a second or third language because it just kind of, like you said, it prepares you for what kind of things you'd have to consider when you are localizing to a different language or whatever. Because we don't just do the languages that we speak, we cover all languages. Okay. But when it comes to like advising the client, you already have an idea of particular challenges that they could potentially face because of how language works. And then more broadly speaking, I think when you start to speak another language, there's this play that we did for A-level English way back in the day. I'm kind of old now, so it's a long time ago. But I always remember this play. It's called Translations by Brian Friel, who's an Irish playwright. I think he's a playwright and maybe just a writer in general, but he wrote plays. This play called Translations, one of the quotes that I remember was something along the lines of language maps a culture, right? So if we think of culture as like a place, language is the thing that allows us to understand the specific topography of that culture, right? So one of the reasons why I enjoy speaking languages is because it's like a gateway for me to really understand the culture where that language is spoken. When I go to Brazil, for example, I feel like Brazil sometimes is quite a challenging place for people to go to that don't speak any Portuguese. Or at least you can have a great time in Brazil, but if you speak Portuguese, like the experience is like just magnified by like 10 because you're able to engage with the local people and things aren't as well signposted as they could be in Brazil. My friend actually works in tourism in Brazil, so sorry, no shade.
Need better signs.
Like English is not that widely spoken, or at least compared to, I guess, other countries. People find it a bit challenging to go on holiday there sometimes.
Yeah.
But if you have Portuguese, and this is why I think it's so important, when you go somewhere, really make an attempt to, like, even if it's just a couple of phrases, people really appreciate it when you meet them on their level. Again, it's like another form of connection, you know? I feel like language really helps you to navigate a culture. There's certain things that, you know, you can't translate into English. Certain emotions or feelings or experiences that you can only really kind of articulate in the language of that place. So, yeah.
Yeah, this is a great segue because I wanted to ask you about traveling as well. Especially, like, I think Brazil is just, from what I've seen, 'cause I've never been, it's just so vibrant, and it's got like such a sense of community that I think is just, I don't know, I feel quite isolated here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just wanted to ask about Brazil in particular. Like, what kind of experiences have you had there that you feel like you wouldn't have in the UK?
Yeah. Where to begin? So just a bit of background, because you know, I think, but I've been going to Brazil for many years now. I did Spanish and Portuguese at university, and the first time I went there was for my year abroad. But I'd always wanted to go to Brazil from before that, from very young. And then I got there, and it was like pretty much how I expected it to be, or even exceeded my expectations. I absolutely loved it. Like, I knew I was going to really enjoy it. I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy it. And so I remember during that year abroad feeling like, yeah, I can definitely see myself living here. So before I moved definitively, I went back a couple of times for like a couple of short-term jobs. And then I was like, yeah, I really made up my mind after those experiences. I moved there and I lived there for 2 years. And yeah, they're probably among the most happiest 2 years of my life. I've had really good moments in life in general, but some really good memories from my time living there. Living in Brazil, one of the things that I really came to appreciate about it was, and maybe this is more of an indictment of where we live in the UK, but there is, like you said, there is a very strong sense of community. And I genuinely think that it is like maybe a Western problem, or more specifically like a Northern European Western thing, where we kind of have eschewed that for individualism and consumerism and capital, whatever. And this is not to say that those things don't exist in Brazil, because it's there. It's like, you know, it's very capitalist or whatever. But there is very much a strong sense of, community and enjoying each day for what it is. I'm a bit kind of wary of kind of veering into like rose tinted spectacles, kind of like Brazil is this amazing magical place. Brazil is a country like any other place. It has its issues, but it has its positives as well. I just felt like I really identified with the place, with living there. And that sense of community was a big part of it. I think there is this idea also of, like I said before, enjoying each day, but also appreciating it as well. Which, again, I feel like here we finish our day at work and then we go home, make dinner, watch something on TV, on Netflix, and then like kind of go to bed. And it's not to say that, you know, routines don't exist in Brazil, because they do. But I think people tend to get together a bit more. It's a very musical culture as well. Brazil's a very, very diverse place as well. The regions are very different. Each region has its culture and there is a lot of variation. But for much of the country, music plays a very, very important part. And that, again, brings people together. One of my favorite things to do when I'm out there is go to what's called Roda de Samba, which is basically like a samba event where the musicians will sit in a circle and they'll play music and people will come and watch. But like literally people will just be sort of stood like around them and they will just sing along. Like very often it gets to the point where you can just hear the crowd singing. You can't even hear the musicians because everybody gets together and they sing along. Just little things like that.
Yeah.
Like, these Roda de Samba, they happen all the time.
Yeah, where do they take place? Just like in the street or?
Yeah, they can be in a square, in a
Because
street.
I'm thinking like we wouldn't have that experience here. We have to pay like 20 quid to like host it somewhere and everyone has to buy a ticket online kind of thing. Like it's very...
I mean, yeah, sometimes, you know, you have these events and, you know, you do have to pay to get in. But more often than not, it will literally just be like in a little square or just like in a little public space and people will just gather around and it's just so like that kind of level of connection and community. Me being musical, I like creating music with other people. It's really
it's really a culture of life affirming and sharing. Yeah. I feel like whenever, I mean, I've tried to like get into like groups and do things with people in that way here, and it just feels like, okay, I'm here, so I have to kind of make the most. It feels very awkward, maybe because I'm an awkward person. But I've tried, but it just doesn't come across like organically. So
I think spontaneity again is spontaneity is something that doesn't occur very often in the UK. Like you said, everything has to follow a kind of way of doing things. It's quite rigid, and I'm quite a spontaneous person. And Brazil tends to be quite a spontaneous place. So again, that kind of it.
Now I'm thinking about it, that's why I went to Japan for 5 years, because it's like the complete opposite. It's like we do things in this exact way. We have not changed since the 80s and we will continue to do this till 2050. But also like there's that online like meme of like, come to Brazil, like you know, come to our culture. But you were there at the Lady Gaga like free. I was so jealous.
I mean, I was there, but like so were 2.5 million other people. So like we couldn't even see the stage. Like so she was on Copacabana Beach. And I mean Copacabana, they always have their New Year's Eve celebrations there anyway. So Copacabana Beach is used to seeing 2 million people just turn up on the beach.
I didn't know that was like a normal...
So Brazil's used to these like massive events. So it just felt like carnival again. When we got there, we got off the metro and then just so many people. And I was like, okay, this just kind of feels like carnival. But then, we get down to the beach and like, say the stage is in front of this famous hotel called Copacabana Palace, right? The crowds are so big that we weren't even in the same area anymore. Like we'd gone past, like there's this road that divides Copacabana, the area, with another area called Leme. We were in Leme. You were there. But we were there. And it was amazing. And Brazilian fans are something else, man. They are...
Because when you're talking about like these, I can't say the word,
samba.
Samba, okay. The samba's like in the squares on the streets. And this kind of, 2 million people. It's just like, that just makes sense for their culture and them and the way they see and appreciate life. And trying to apply any kind of facet to that, to like British culture or... I mean, I think we're kind of hardwired to have like so many kind of like rules and health and safety. And health and safety is good. I'm not saying safety is great.
But I mean, we live in quite a prescribed and rigid society. So those kind of things, they can't really occur in that way. So like if Lady Gaga was to come here, first of all, we don't have a Copacabana Beach for that time. But actually, I remember back in the day, Fatboy Slim did a massive concert on, I think it was on Brighton Beach. And it was quite, people got hurt and stuff like that. So they never did anything like that again. So maybe it's just kind of like different approaches to health and safety. I don't know, because an event like that with 2 point how many million people, there is quite a large potential for people getting hurt and danger and whatever. But that aside, I think Brazilian fandom is very, very special. When they say come to Brazil, they mean it. They really mean it. Like they're not playing the games. They're like, we want you to come here. And I think it's a mixture of, they really want to share their culture with the rest of the world. I also often think that Brazilians don't realize how much their culture is appreciated and loved. So I'm just going to go on record, any Brazilians watching this. The rest of the world really loves Brazil and Brazilian culture.
So it was cool.
When you're in Brazil, they have a tendency to kind of, they call it, actually maybe I won't use the Portuguese word, but they have like this kind of tendency to kind of look down on themselves a little bit or expect the rest of the world to be like, oh, Brazil's this place that people want to go to Brazil. People really love Brazil. Brazilian culture is very, very attractive. Yeah, they do have this thing of wanting to share their culture. I think sometimes because it's like, we want to show you that Brazil's not that bad, but we don't think Brazil's bad. Like,
we don't think Brazil's bad.
They are really, really, like, for me, they write the rule book on stands. Like, when they stand an artist, they really, like, people traveled, you know, from the north of Brazil, like an 18-hour coach journey, just for, like, they wouldn't even stay the night. They would come down 18 hours, watch Lady Gaga, and then just get back on the coach in the morning.
Oh my God.
That's what people prepared to do. So, yeah, the fans out there are...
They're crazy.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I have one friend from Argentina and one from Ecuador.
Yeah.
They're not like that intense.
Yeah.
But I feel like whenever they're communicating in Spanish, it just feels so much more passionate. And like, even the way they live their life is so passionate. I always ask them, like, how are you doing 15 things at once? Like, how do you keep going? But I don't know, maybe it's ingrained in like South American culture. And I'm like, you guys are great. Like, I don't know how you're doing this.
Yeah, I think, again, like I was saying before, I feel like it's more of an indictment on maybe Northern European culture.
Oh yeah, maybe it is.
But I suppose, you know, people argue that there's good elements to that as well, you know? But I think for me personally, especially because my family's from the Caribbean as well, you're like half Caribbean as well. So you kind of get, but like, for me, I kind of identify more with that being of West Indian descent than, say, being here. So yeah.
I think just maybe because I grew up mostly with my French side.
Yeah.
So that's probably why I'm more like European, I guess.
fair, yeah.
But yeah, I wanted, because you said something about Brazilians like living each day and appreciating each day, which is a very kind of mindful concept. It's like living truthfully in the moment and acknowledging the moment and just not kind of, it's kind of that non-judgment of what you're doing. It's just very much being here and being now. And I think a lot of people think of mindfulness as meditation and Zen and yoga or something like that. Yeah. But clearly there's a very active part to it. It was like, I am existing to my fullest potential in the here and now. Yeah. I just wanted to know kind of your take on that, because I don't know, like, if you're living that way, you are kind of mindful person, which would kind of contradict with the imagery of mindfulness, I suppose.
Right, okay, yeah. But I think community is so important. Like, community, again, it's like such an important part of the human experience. Yeah. So perhaps this kind of obsession with this kind of mindfulness that you mentioned, which is like very stoic and very like meditation, and it's very individual, is kind of a symptom of what we have in this very individualistic society in the way that, you know, our attempts to be more mindful just kind of reproduces a kind of individualism, you know? Yeah. Whereas being in tune with yourself, to be able to do that, it's really important to have connection with other people. I think you understand yourself better when you are connected to other people. Even like, you know, when you're going through, say, mental health difficulties, when you're struggling, whether it's with like depression or whatever, people always tell you not to suffer alone, to talk to someone, to reach out for connection. And I think that's basically it, you know? Mindfulness doesn't have to be this kind of like solo, stoic pursuit. Obviously, it's really important sometimes to be alone with your thoughts. Yeah. But that doesn't mean completely disconnecting yourself from what we need and what we crave as human beings, which is community. Yeah. And also, when you have community, people can tell you, like, they can tell you about yourself, you know, like, you're actually acting up, you're moving mad, you know, like, come back to reality. Like, I think it's really, really important to have people in your life. And obviously, this is people that you feel like you can trust. You know, I'm not saying, you know, just be influenced by anybody. But I think having a community that you can rely on and that also that you can contribute towards as well is really, really important. I think it's one of the more healing things you can do is actually to not see yourself as kind of like like all the focus is on me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important to see how you connect and how you fit in with the community, and also kind of contribute towards that.
I wanted to ask as well, just on the topic of community, like, how have you gone about fostering your own community? Like, do you seek out people? Like,
Mm,
because I feel very much now people just their primary thing is like, this is my online community. This is
yeah,
like my online space. And
yeah,
then this is my offline space. And they're very like separate.
mm,
And I, there's like these two personas of self.
yeah,
It's very strange. Whereas I'm trying to create more of like a coherent just self overall.
mm,
And I feel like you have such like a rich like community in general, just like offline. And I don't know, like if you've
yeah,
created it through like going out to events or through sports or through just like life experiences or
yeah. That's a good question. I think I just enjoy experiences. I enjoy discovering new things.
mm-hmm.
I'm very inquisitive. So, yeah, I have like lots of different kind of niches and friendship groups
Mm-hmm.
because of those different and random things that I like to do. And yeah, I think just naturally as you get involved in things, you just naturally make friends, you make
Yeah.
connections. And I travel a lot as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, you make friends in the places that you travel to, and you stay in touch with them. When they come to visit, you give them like, show them around, or even
Yeah.
offer like a place to stay. And vice versa. When I travel, I normally stay with friends now when I travel, which is really nice because you get to know the place better because of, the people that, they live there. You're not
Mm-hmm.
relying on like, tourist guides and TikTok and things like that.
Yeah.
People, that live there are taking you around. So yeah, I think it's just that. Like the more you do, the more you come across people and the more
Yeah.
connections you find. And social media is kind of like, it's a bit of a paradox because it's enabled us to be more connected than ever before. Like a lot of the time when I'm away from the people that I know, like if like my friends in other countries, I keep in contact with them via social media.
Yeah.
But it's also duped us into thinking that we are perhaps more connected
Yeah.
than we actually, like genuine connection.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can't use it again as some sort of like substitute for real in life genuine connection. And that's obviously, like where possible,
Yeah.
Sometimes people aren't able to physically go and see people. And that's absolutely fine. You use social media to kind of to help you with that.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you can physically go and see someone or spend time with them, I advocate for that.
Yeah.
For that so much more than just relying on just like, oh yeah, I know how so and so is because I see them
Yeah.
like on their stories and they're doing fine. But actually, like what they post very often isn't the whole story, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just need to go and check in on your friends.
Call
and
them.
call them at the very least.
Yeah.
Just hear their voice. Connections are made through going out and doing things, and again, it's about shared experiences and connection.
Thank you so much for listening or watching this episode. The next part will be released very soon, so make sure to subscribe or follow Pensive Podcast for the latest updates.